Hello, 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 and welcome back to the podcast. Thank you very much for being here. If you are a newbie, thanks for joining the craziness. All right, today we are doing something different. You guys, I do not have a lot of guests on my podcast. I'm going to try to change that because you probably get sick of hearing from me all the time. But we're going to talk about short-term rentals today, aka Airbnbs. You don't need to call them Airbnbs. They're called short-term rentals. So whoever's out there listening, correct your friends. You are renting a short-term rental, not Airbnb. Anywho, that's my one rant today. So I brought on the KarWells. I always say it wrong. The KarWells. It's Emily and Sarah. They have a podcast called The KarWells. If you have not met with me and I have not told you to go there, go there. You can pause this, go look for it, add it to your subscription because it is probably one of the best short-term rental podcasts out. They talk about the good, they talk about the bad, they talk about the challenges, they're giving tax advice, they have awesome guests on, and they actually have a podcast longer than 5 minutes. So if you are at all interested, add that to your list. But let's get into it. So welcome, Sarah and Emily.
Hi, thank you for having us.
Yes, so I'm so excited. So I listen. Does yours come out on Fridays?
Thursday, midday.
Okay. So I must have a lot of them that feed in Thursday and Fridays because I don't always see yours. I have to kind of go search for it sometimes. But I love it because, Emily, you did your new rental as we got done with ours. And so for clients, people listening, I have one short-term rental and it was a learning experience. And so if you go back just a couple of Sarah and Emily's podcasts, you will hear Emily talk about all these challenges. And I was like, oh, me too. Me too. Oh, yes. Yes, me too. So they're not that easy to get started with. So what is if you had to give somebody advice that's on the fence about should I start, should I go big, should I go little? Where do you start? What do you look for? What is the one piece of advice that you would say to somebody new trying to figure out if that's the industry for them?
Oh, okay.
Go ahead,
Yeah. Sarah and I have this routine where she tries to let me go first because she does a lot of the talking. So I honestly think the fact that you are recommending people to go and listen to podcasts is the biggest first step. Like getting into a mentorship program, listening to podcasts, things like that, because it is not a small amount of work. I think that there's this concept around short-term rentals. I like that you said short-term rentals too, because Airbnb is a platform. It's not the entire business. But I think people have this concept that it's this get-rich-quick scheme. And it used to be that. And if we're being realistic, a few years ago, it absolutely used to be something that you could get into, throw some furniture into a property, and you could start making money. And it's not that anymore. It's a lot of work. And it's a lot of money up front. And so I think educating yourself through podcasts, through Instagram accounts, through mentorship is one of the biggest decisions that you can make because we did not do that. And there's a reason that we lost a lot of money in the first 4 years and we were working for pennies as designers because we had to learn over those first 4 years. And so if you can educate yourself before jumping into a property, I think that is the biggest first step you can take.
Yeah. And I'll piggyback off that more specifically, we've obviously started educating this year and offering a mentorship, but I know that the biggest win for brand new hosts who do join our mentorship is learning how to spot a good deal. I think that all the rest really kind of fall flat on your face and still make money. But if you buy wrong, then you're never going to make money, right? It won't matter the design. It won't matter about any of the property management. It won't matter about the pricing. None of that will matter if you bought wrong and if it wasn't going to be a profitable deal out the gate. And so if you can start with that skill and really perfect that skill, then all the rest of it you can learn along the way and really screw up and still see yourself in the green.
So I know that you have a mentoring program and I've not signed up for that, but in that program then, are you actually showing people how to spot the good deals and what to look for them? Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, we have 2 full weeks, and it's honestly, it could go more. We're doing like a bonus lesson right now that is even deeper diving into that because, like Sarah said, you can, if you're not looking at the competition in your area and you get into a property that's never going to be profitable, you're never going to be able to improve that property over time. We talk about doing things in phases, and you're never going to get enough capital to invest in your next property if you're starting in the, what do they call the negative? The red? Yeah.
Mhm.
I'm like
guys are
red,
so
green, black is even, green is good, red is bad.
Oh, that's so funny. When I listen, I'm like, oh, these guys are so funny. They're designers. Because that is what and I'm like all about the how much money can I make? Yesterday I went for coffee with a friend and she likes doing travel nurses because it's a little bit smaller for her to get into financially. And she was running the numbers and I'm like, that's not enough for me every month. Like I need more cash flow than that to make that justifiable. And so when I broke the numbers down like that, I'm out. Like I can't do that. I want thousands a month in profit. I don't want a couple $100. And it's
Right.
not bad. It is not bad at all. That is a demand in our area. But you do have to know when to spot the good deal. And even I struggle with that. Like, is it a good deal? Because by the time I'm done decorating and remodeling, because that's what I end up tending to do to make it nice. And I've learned that I'm maybe a little more bougie than most. Like I think things need to be a little nicer than they probably need to be. And so, because I watch even some of your stuff on Instagram, I'm like, oh, they left that floor. I would have tore that floor out. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Like the designing part of it is a big deal. So let's talk
Yeah.
about that a little bit. Like so we've got the good deal. We can go to the course. We can figure that out. But how do we know when to stop?
Yeah, we that's definitely something that we cover in the mentorship as well because we have watched so many people come from long-term rentals or fix and flipping and they'll try and transition into short-term rentals and because they came from long-term rentals and fix and flipping, they always prioritize the finishes first, right? They're looking at it like, okay, well, the easiest way to get an equity grab on this house or to build in equity is to redo this kitchen or redo these bathrooms or whatever the case may be. Then they drain all of their budget on those renovations and they don't leave the budget for a hot tub or kayaks or pontoons or the amenities that really increase that nightly rate. And so for us, we try and shift that perspective if you are coming in from a fix and flip mentality or a long-term rental mentality to understand that you can still build on that equity in phase 2 or 3 of the project. But if you want to get the most bang for your buck out the gate, because everybody has a finite budget to begin with, you have to prioritize the things that have a high ROI. And at the end of the day, from the amount of research that we've done, there's never an ROI attached to bathroom flooring. And there's never an ROI attached to countertops.
Interesting.
But there is ROI attached to hot tubs and pools and converted garages into game rooms and kayaks and pontoons and all of these things that people are actually using on vacation. And, if you really think about it, you're like, where are the memories made? With the countertop selection or with the pontoon? Like, and so you have to weigh those odds and kind of draw that line and be like, this is where the market is right now. My competition isn't redoing their flooring and they're not redoing their countertops and they're getting X amount, but they do have a hot tub. Like I have to prioritize the hot tub before I prioritize all these other things. So for us, it's just we've created a totem pole of importance attached to ROI when we're explaining it to investors on where to draw that line.
So are you guys still doing, because I had, and you may not remember, Sarah, but you and I had a consultation a long time ago when I bought mine. Are you guys still doing that with people?
It's really rare that we do one-on-one calls at this point. We do offer for our mentees on the back end kind of an ongoing week-by-week call that they can opt in for an additional fee. A monthly membership is basically what it is. But other than that, the one-on-one calls, we've realized that we're just kind of reiterating everything that we cover in the mentorship, you know? And so the person that we'll have the one-on-one call with will come back for more information once they reach the next step. And we're like, can we just combine this so it's easier for us to manage in a 10-week span than constantly having to plug in and teach the same lesson to 5 different people throughout the year, if that makes sense.
And how much is the membership?
The mentorship right now, it's a 10-week program. We meet once a week, and then we host a huge graduation event at the end where it's a full weekend of us spoiling our mentees.
Which is tax deductible, just so you know.
Which is tax deductible, of course.
I listened to that this morning. I'm like, their accountant's a moron. That is 100% tax deductible.
Oh, yeah.
I'm doing a client-only conference. It's going to be like $85,000. And I'm like, you damn right I'm writing that all off. Like,
oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Like, they're not cheap.
Yeah, our first event cost upwards of $35,000. So
they're expensive.
They're expensive.
Yeah.
But so worth it. And the value that people get out of it is intense.
Insane.
And so the price point for the mentorship right now is at $7,800 for the 10 weeks plus the graduation. And we have sold out every class that we have offered so far. We've done 3 of them now, and all 3 have just blown us out of the water. We have been so floored with how aligned our community has been, how ambitious the people are that are joining, how quickly people are purchasing houses. So it's been incredible.
Awesome. Well, I know I enjoyed the consultation we did. And of course, it wasn't free, but I enjoyed that. And I didn't do anything you said, but that was here nor there. I still haven't turned the garage is there. It's just not a game room yet. I'm like, the remodel was a little like it's a 1916 Sears Roebuck home. So once we started ripping stuff out, I'm like, oh, that's why the floor sags by an inch in the middle. Okay. So we probably should put a support beam in there. You know, like there were just some other things we had to get done that were more precedent than a game room or a hot tub at this point. But the hot tub thing was extremely amazing to me when you had said at that point the numbers were $10,000 extra a year for a hot tub, $30,000 more for a game room on your ROI. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that is insane.
Yeah.
But we're in North Dakota, right? Like we already had snow. And so what's interesting is I thought I'm just going to add the hot tub later. And we opened August 1st and we've had 2 guests per month. So I think we've had 6 people to this point. I think I counted the other day. Only one of them used the patio. Only one of them used the grill. And I'm like, I went and spent all this money on patio furniture and nobody's even sat on it, you know? So I'm like, are they going to even use the hot tub or am I going to go spend $12,000, $13,000 on a hot tub that never gets used? So I'm going to just add some of that stuff as we go. But there is one hot tub in our city, one out of all the Airbnbs. And I saw yesterday, it's in a garage.
Oh, that's strange.
Interesting.
That looks like
choice.
a mold issue to me, but I'm just saying.
You know, it does sound like a mold.
I will say we launched our properties at the same time, as you kind of mentioned. Every guest that I've had has used our hot tub so far, every single one. And there's only one other house in my market that has a hot tub. And I know with Sarah's experience, nobody had one. And now all of them do after she added one. They all kind of went back in. And that's why we talk about doing things in phases. Like, I want to completely redo the deck on my property. I want to completely redo the downstairs bathroom because I think the shower is too small. But none of that fit into my launch budget. And so all of those things are things that I'm going to be doing over time instead of, I tried to prioritize other things at the beginning that I knew, like I put 10 grand into the hot tub, 2 grand into putting a concrete pad under it and building a privacy fence and things like that instead of putting it into a bathroom or redoing the deck. So we do things in phases. We definitely don't. We could spend endless amounts of money on these properties, trust me, but we try to do it in phases to make it realistic because in the end, although we prioritize hospitality over investment, it is an investment. And so we have to think about it in that way.
That's good advice. I like have a launch budget. Like I don't have I didn't have a budget. I was just like, yes or no.
Oh,
like,
we still go over
we
budget.
did. My designer was really good. And I just saw this post on Facebook the other day. Have you ever seen the person with they have the head from the side and they have an apple in it and it shows what people can visualize?
Mm-hmm.
I'm like the nothing box, like nothing. And so my poor designer, she was so frustrated with me. And thank God she's a good friend because she just quit asking me and stuff just started showing up. And she was hanging stuff. And I'm like, what is that going in for? That is completely unnecessary. And she's like, it's part of the look. And then it got all done. I'm like, oh, that's so pretty. And so, like she was very budget conscious and we did as much as we could. But that is such a good comment. Like, set your budget. Is the bathroom floor really going to make that big of a deal? In my head, I would think that it would. But I have noticed too that we've had to tear some trim off and you can see the people before us, they caulked everything. And so now there's space between the wall and the trim. Nobody has said, oh my gosh, nobody's given me a bad review because I don't have any white paint there,
Right.
And those are things where my eye goes and I see them and I'm like, oh, they didn't even finish and now we're in here. But apparently not everybody's as picky as me. And so,
yeah. And I feel like it's so different when it's a house that you've been in too, because I lived in our property for almost a full year. And so the things that I haven't done eat at me. And I'm like, oh, somebody is going to comment on that. And nobody comments on it because we have a hot tub for them to hang out. We have a patio for them to hang out. We have a fully stocked kitchen. We have great design. We have games for them to play. There's all of these other things that they're focusing on that I'm the only one who notices all of those little details that just eat at you for so long. And I'm like, I'll go back and I'll fix it in the next phase.
Yeah. And Sarah told me in our consultation that they are visiting. They are not living there. And so she's like, they're not going to see that stuff because they're just visiting. And that is so true. But let's talk about how you guys do this, because I think that is extremely important too, because you both live in your properties, fix them, and then rent them, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Let's talk about that hack, because that's a great way to financially start if you don't have a lot of money to just go buy the properties.
It really is.
It is the secret sauce. Yeah. And Emily and I, you will never hear us tell anyone that is an easy, stress-free process. Like it's chaos. Like, I mean, your every day is chaotic with work in general, but then when you're living in a construction zone and there's nowhere for your eye or your brain to rest, like we're designers, right? So we're very impacted by our spaces, or we're very conscious of the fact that people are highly impacted by their spaces. And so when you're living in a construction zone for a year, like it is no doubt an added level of like mental exhaustion to be in there. But the beauty of it is that, with conventional loans, you can get 5% or 3% down. And as long as it's your primary home, you are not bound to living there for 12 months like you are with an FHA loan. And so for us, we could get into these properties with 3 to 5% down. We could live in them Emily lived in it for a year. I lived in 2 of mine now. I've used that loan on it with a primary home, where one I lived in for 9 months, one I lived in for 6 months, and then moved out and made them rentals. But when you're talking about a 5% or 3% down payment in comparison to a 20 to 25% down payment, that's tens of thousands of dollars that you're saving out the gate. And so I happily lived through the chaotic stress of living in a construction zone if it meant that we got our foot in the door and got a few rental properties under our belt for way less than we will pay in the future.
So and then you keep that loan as a conventional mortgage, or do you have to switch it as soon as you start renting, or we just don't tell anybody that we're renting because it's none of their business?
So we do have to remove homestead off of the properties when we start renting them out, but there is no real time frame on when you have to shift it into an LLC. And so now we're working with an asset protection team who's going through that process, because there's always this like risk of them calling the loan the second you shift it into an LLC. And so every single person that mentions that when we look at shifting it into an LLC, they're like, this is possible, but we've never seen it before. And so it's almost like this elusive like threat in the background that nobody's experienced. And so we're letting the asset protection team handle shifting all of those into LLCs currently, but none of them have been shifted yet. So Homestead is off all of them, but all of them still are in our personal names and not in our LLCs as of this point.
Okay. And so the mortgage just stayed the same.
Yeah. Mortgage stayed the same, but property taxes go up. They nearly double when you remove Homestead.
Okay. And so that is such a good hack for people that want to get in, but they just can't. And they have to be okay moving all the time. Like, I don't like moving all the time. This would not be a hack for me. We lived through one remodel and I'm never doing that again because it was awful. And we had the downstairs to live in while he was doing the upstairs. And then we went upstairs when he went downstairs, and it was not fun at all. And he was a great contractor. Like, he cleaned everything up best he could. But like, even that, the managing the contractors is painful because they don't. And Sarah, is it your dad that's a contractor?
Yes.
It's painful.
It is painful. I mean, now we are shifting into a new gear where we're using investor capital to fund a lot of these properties. And so all of a sudden now we're not living in them, right? Like Orange Cadillac, I did not live in while we renovated that property, except for maybe the last 3 weeks of that process. And, it's a whole different level of difficult because it's like when you're living there, you're very hands-on with it. You can make sure that things are happening in a timely fashion and that people are showing up on time and staying late to finish the thing that they said that they were going to do. But you're living in chaos at the end of the day. Whereas when you're not living on site, it's much more difficult to make sure that contractors are doing what they said that they were going to do and the timeline that they said that they were going to do it and the quality that you want them to do it at while you're not on site. So it is a different monster and it is chaotic, but at least like the four walls that you're living in aren't the disaster. So.
Right.
Yeah. And it's like you have to be in a certain stage of life to be able to live in these properties. Sarah and I are doing a lot of these things ourselves. Like, we're putting together the furniture, we're painting almost the entire houses ourselves. Sarah has started kind of contracting that out. And so that's another hack where we save money to where we're not hiring out a lot of the work that's being done. So if you're not in that stage of life, that's just another factor that you have to factor into your budget from the very beginning, is how much it's going to cost for the labor. And so I painted my entire home myself. The only thing that we hired out was the concrete getting laid and the flooring being laid. And I did everything else myself at that house. And so that's a big way that you can save money at the very beginning, but it's more time consuming. It's more chaotic because you're living in the property. But you just have to weigh the pros and cons and what stage of life that you're in and if it works for the lifestyle that you have.
Yeah. And it's a matter of like, we used to do all that stuff ourselves. I mean, I'm 49. I'm no spring chicken here. So we used to do all that stuff ourselves way back when. And now I'm like, it is just cheaper than a divorce to hire a contractor to do it. Because my husband is very much, if you want him to weld something, he's going to go he'll weld you whatever you want. Anything I want welded for the house, because I use a lot of metal in my homes. So anything I want welded, he's game on. But if I want anything done with wood, trim, doors put in, flooring, nope, he's done. He is past that stage of his life, Emily. He is over it. And so, and some of it too, like I have found, if I can pay somebody to do it, like, yes, you have to have the money, but if I can pay somebody to do it, I was able to rent that thing faster than if we would have done it along with working. I mean, we did a lot of the demo because I can't hardly wait for contractors to get here. So I'm in there demoing right away and I don't mind tearing things apart, but I'm not good at putting them back together. And so I also know my limitations, but like Scott doesn't like to do it. And it's never, if it's a little bit off, I'm like, well, could have you cut that better? Like, again, he just gets it because I'm so picky. And so he's like, well, then just hire somebody to do it, because he gets mad. And I get it, but I don't know how to do it. So I just expect it perfect. And I have to learn that it's like a lot of construction's not as easy, but it's still an amazing hack. And understanding, I just feel like people need to understand what they're getting into. And so many want to get started and they can't get started. And so a lot of people listening are going to be like, oh, $7,800. I was out at $7,800. You probably weren't in ever. then. Like, that's my, my 2 cents on that. If you're going to spend, here's the one thing that just the consult that I had with Sarah, I don't even remember what it was for an hour. I don't remember what I paid you for an hour, but I got off the phone call and I'm like, that lady just saved me like $15,000. And my husband's like, why? And I said, I was going to rip out that whole damn floor because it was sagging an inch. And she said, it's not going to matter because people are just there on vacation. And then I got off the phone call with you and I went to Cody, Wyoming. I left that day, walked into a short-term rental and the floor went down. And I was like, wouldn't have even noticed had my floor not gone down. I would have never even paid attention to it, Yes. And so by spending, my opinion is if you're going to spend the $7,800 to go through your guys' mentorship, you're going to save $7,800 of mistakes. So it's no different than you guys listening when I tell you to go buy a $20 book. I'm not making any money off your damn book. You need to buy a $20 book so you understand why you're even meeting with me, So if you're serious about doing that, I haven't been through their mentorship, but why would you not? Because you're covering decorating, you're covering the hacks, you're covering the taxes. Now you guys have all this LLC information that you get to share. It's just the experience. If you don't know anybody else doing it, why would you not just go get yourself a 0% interest credit card? Put it on there. Pay it off before the 0%'s over.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, when we launched this mentorship, we hired a mentor who knows how to launch mentorships correctly, knows how to price them, knows how to sell them. I mean, A to Z, right? We had learned that by not getting a mentor for new ventures, we spent tens of thousands of dollars on mistakes. We spent the first 2.5 years trudging through the mud. And when he had suggested, he was like, look, I have, offered real estate mentorships like this in the past. Like yours really needs to be priced 10 grand or higher. And we were like, whoa, like that is way out of our comfort zone to ask people for 10 grand for us to hop on 10 calls and offer this graduation. And so we landed on 7,800. And then when we launched our first class, within the first week, someone had saved $18,000 on their taxes just by being connected with a short-term rental specific CPA that was trusted, knew what he was talking about, walk them through all of the loopholes that are related with short-term rentals. And so that was a huge mindset shift for us where we were like, whoa, like in the first week, we're saving someone $18,000 and they had to pay $7,800. And it's been that over and over and over again where people have come to us and they're like, after the mentorship, they're like, you need to raise these rates. And we're like, we walked into this thinking these were outrageously priced at the beginning. And now we're like, our eyes are kind of open to the value that's brought by helping people skip all the crazy mistakes that we've made. So it's been a great community to start building.
So let's talk about because you guys are in Ohio.
Michigan.
Okay. Are most of your Airbnbs, because I've heard you say before that they're rural, but I think your rural and my rural are probably not the same. And so, are most of yours around lakes?
Yes.
Okay. So by rural, you mean it's a lake cabin?
Yes.
Okay.
It is a lake cabin, and the towns that these properties are in are like sub 1,000 people.
Oh, so it is pretty small.
Very, very small. It's like you're not.
There's not a Walmart there.
No. Some of them.
I think my town is the
well,
biggest town that we're in, which is like in northern. Mine's on the Lake Huron side in Alpena, and I think it's
how
the
many
biggest
people
town.
live there?
That one is. I think it's like 10,000 live there. So that mine's in more of like a city, I guess, but the other ones are all off of dirt roads on land.
So that's interesting. So rural, I'm glad that I asked that because that's very fascinating to me because when I think rural, like I'm 15 minutes from Walmart. So we have 100,000 people in town, but I'm 15 minutes from Walmart. You got 3 miles of gravel. Like thinking nobody's going to want to drive that gravel. It's going to be muddy. People don't want that. Then I also thought, well, you guys are by a lake. So is it really rural? Because they're going there for the lake, right? We don't have bodies of water where I am. So you are ending up in a pasture and that is my rural. So, but that's interesting because it's not like you can just run to Walmart. Oh, I forgot a toothbrush or I forgot deodorant. Like they're having to prepare.
Yes. Yeah. Our goal with the lake houses specifically is that it's an amenity that people cannot build into their properties, right? So it adds a certain level of longevity to our properties that other people can't build in as competition gets higher and higher. But in Michigan, I mean, because we grew up here, we knew that, especially Michiganders in the summer, if you had friends or family that lived on a lake, like you spent the entire summer there. Like you would do anything to get there. That is the highlight of Michigan. And there's lakes everywhere. And so for us, we knew that we could get these rural lake houses for the cost of what most other people would pay, not on a lake, maybe near a city or something. And so most of our traffic is drive-in traffic. The people who come and visit our properties are the vast majority are either like Chicago driving in or Detroit and Grand Rapids kind of leaving the city to push out into these more rural places. And we just want, we notice that people will drive in and they stay. It's like they don't leave unless they're like maybe going to dinner or going to the bar, but they spend all of their time at our property.
What do you do in the winter?
So we have for seasonality, just because every market is going to have some sort of seasonality because we have so much snow, which obviously you understand. It gets a little more complicated, but the areas that we're looking, we specifically look for areas that maybe have some sort of winter draw, like snowmobiling trails, ski hills, things like that. But our goal is to provide everything at the property to where they don't have to leave if they don't want to. So that's why we prioritize things like hot tubs. That's like really high on our priority list because people are going to be using that all winter long. We prioritize having some sort of indoor game room area or movie area because in the winter, people still like to vacation in the winter. Although like it's not ideal, you're not spending all the time on the lake, but if we're providing some sort of cozy movie area or a game room area where people can still gather, then we're pulling, although the traffic goes down based on seasonality, we're pulling all of the traffic to our property because we still have activities for them to do in the winter.
Yeah.
I would say our slowest is actually spring because spring is nasty. It's just muddy. It's not like our area for spring is probably the least amount of travel because if people are traveling, they're going south. But I would say winter, people are still traveling a decent amount because there are so many winter activities to do. Ice fishing, people will come and ice fish, things like that.
Yeah.
But we're prioritizing making sure that the property has everything it needs to where they don't have to go outside if they don't want to.
Yeah. And I'll piggyback on that as well. When we talk about the totem pole of importance on where you're pouring your money, a mistake we see a lot of Michigan investors making is they prioritize the summer amenities, right? Because summer is the high travel season here in Michigan. And so they're like, we have to prioritize high season. And so when they're spending their budget, let's say you have $10,000 and you have to decide if you want to convert the garage into a heated game room that is for season use, or you want to build this extreme, amazing deck patio fire pit that people can enjoy in the summer, people always go for the fire pit, right? Or they'll always go for like an additional outdoor amenity, like buying kayaks for every single person or whatever the case may be, as opposed to focusing on the winter amenity that is 4 seasons that really curbs that seasonal traffic. And so for us, it's like, okay, we know slow season is winter. Let's make sure that the priority for the amenities goes into the winter amenities because we've already got the lake for summer. Like we already know that we're going to be booked out 100% of the time with good design and the lake available. Let's make sure that we really cater to that winter slow season to make sure that we're still making profit.
That is brilliant. I would have not thought about that. So maybe that's why I need my game room because I have nothing for you to do if you get snowed in.
Yeah,
I put a fireplace in. I was like, we don't need a fireplace. my designer's like, yes, you do. So I'm like, well, that's good enough for them. Like, I'm just totally okay not having, like, I'm not a super fun person. So I don't need to have games. I don't need to have outdoor activities. If it's cold, I'm good just staying in, having some soup, like chit-chatting. I'm fine with that. I didn't even put playing cards. I don't think she put well, I didn't do any of this. I don't think that she put playing cards in there. Maybe she did. But we had a group of guys come in. That's a whole nother story. So we had a group of guys come in and they left and we had dice. And I'm like, oh, yeah, dice. I suppose that would make sense. Like they're going to play cards, because they're here drinking, doing whatever. But yeah, so this is a total story. So you guys start your podcasts. If you guys don't, just go listen to their podcast. But they start their podcast with a horror story, which I absolutely love. And there's some good ones. And mine is not a horror story. But I have noticed that we have pillow shams on everything, and we have throw blankets everywhere, and we have decorative pillows everywhere. And it looks very cozy and very homey, but men do not know what pillow shams are. And so they sleep on the pillow shams, and they like the first group of guys that left. I mean, it's super funny because they didn't ruin anything, but you just watch the pillow sham instead. So it's not a huge deal, but I was like, oh, look, one of them slept in the couch because we didn't have enough beds. And so I'm like, oh, one of them slept in the couch. Oh, that was nice. Somebody lent him the pillow with the pillow sham, not the pillows behind the pillow shams that are just pillowcases.
Oh, yeah. We always say travelers are a certain kind of stupid.
Well, the last group of guys that came were from North Carolina, and they were hunters. And I thought, oh boy, here we go. Like, this could be bad. They're out duck hunting, and this can be dirty. Well, for whatever reason, I happened to meet them. And so, because I was there while they were there, and I was telling them about this pillow sham story. And they just looked at me with complete blank faces. And I'm like, I'll swatch the pillow shams when you leave. Like, I just know, But it was really funny because I go in the house and one guy had all the decorative pillows like lined up in the closet shelf. And he had all his pillow shams off and his bed was made when he left. And I was like, he's trained.
He's married. He's married for sure.
To a lady that uses pillows, and she makes her bed every day. My husband does not know what a pillow sham is. I am not taking pillows. I don't even make my bed. This is there is no point in making my bed. I am never in that bedroom again until I go to bed. And so I am not a decorator. I don't need things to look pretty. And so I just thought that guy is married to somebody that makes her bed every day. And he obviously has to do it.
That is my husband. Like, I get out of bed and he makes my side of the bed. And I'm like, okay.
Yeah, no, we are, my husband and I are not the same there. So that is interesting because I think back to the whole rural thing, I feel like, and I'm going to qualify ours as rural because you're driving past some feedlots to get here and you are there, like it's on 40 acres. There is not another house around you for like that 40 acres. There's a couple of houses, but you really just can't. We're the closest and you can't even see us. And so I feel like that whole piece is becoming quite popular. Like people want the rural. They don't necessarily just want to go we're not going to the city for an Airbnb. Even rural people, I mean, I live rural. And so when we have acreage, and so when I go, like we were in Dallas, Fort Worth, I picked a property that I thought was more rural and secluded, and it was not. But I don't want people, even when I go to town, I don't want people. So
Right.
I think it's a huge movement, and I think it's a great area to get into. Is that what you guys are seeing?
Yeah, I would say, I think the ones that are in the cities are, and you're not going there for the Airbnb, right? Or for the short-term rental. You're going there for whatever is in the city. And the hosts, their direct competition is then hotels. We don't necessarily have a direct competition of hotels in our markets yet because we're in a rural area and people are coming for the short-term rental specifically most of the time. They're not necessarily coming because of something that the city is offering. And I think that that's become a big portion of travel. I mean, you saw it during COVID because it was the only version of travel that people could really do. They couldn't go into the cities. And then it kind of went back to city travel when people could go be out in the open again. And then you see it kind of going back, I think, to more rural travel.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, especially as the economy starts to pinch, right? Like we are walking into a recession, like consumer spending is down, and which results in investors being stressed, right? Like people not wanting to invest their money in something like an Airbnb. And for us, we were already invested in B&Bs in 2019. And so we went through 2020 and we watched how that impacted the B&B community, and cities really suffered. And we were in the city, we were in the heart of DFW. And so we barely broke even for that entire year, but we watched all these rural places thrive. And so we're almost excited in a sense because since then we have really dove into rural investments specifically and been maybe higher risk investors strictly because there's less data available for us to take a look at before we make our purchases. But when we're walking into this recession and we're walking into consumer spending being a little bit tighter, drive-in destinations get more and more popular. People stop flying abroad or flying to other states, and they really start pushing out into some of these more rural markets. And so for us, we are excited for the way that things are going because we feel so much more prepared after 2020 to kind of cater to what the economy is doing currently.
I feel that market is a much easier market to buy things in because it's not, like, especially where I'm at, I can go to town and buy stuff in town, but if I go 30, 40 minutes out of town, I can get it for way less money. And it seems like people don't care if they have to drive. Like, I can't believe these people drive 20 minutes out of town to stay at my short-term rental. Like, it doesn't make sense to me quite yet. Like, why are, and I'm not smart enough to like leave a card that says, why did you choose me? Because there are the same size in town. No, they're not decorated as nice. No, they're not as nice. Like, hands down. No, yesterday I looked at one and his main image on his Airbnb page was his coat hangers. Like, dude, like that is not gonna, and your house is nice. Like, he has a nice big house. I'm like,
nobody's
no.
going to know because they're not going to scroll through that photo.
Exactly. And so I don't know why that is. It's just interesting to me that I have had that, but lots of retreats, lots of women's retreats, Bible study retreats, men's getaways, women's getaways. I had no idea any of this stuff happened because I don't get away. I am totally a homebody. And so I'm 100% fine never leaving. And these people are going on girls' trips. I didn't know that was I'm like, we had 2 of them. Bring them on. Like, they know what a pillow sham is.
Yeah. Yeah. It's been interesting to see, as we've progressed through Airbnb and now that we're 4 years in, it was interesting when we first started as well because we were just designing for ourselves, right? We wanted the lake houses to be something that we were excited to stay at. And immediately we noticed that there was a ton of girls' trips coming. And I was like, well, I designed this property for basically me and my friends, wanting to use it myself and then throwing it on Airbnb and seeing what it would do, but it drew the same clientele. And so now when we start properties, we really try and understand who that clientele is, even if it's not us, right? Because like it's very obvious for us to design something for girls' trips because we understand that avatar of human very intimately. But for example, when we were designing Orange Cadillac or our latest property in Big Rapids, that was for wedding parties and then for families. And so it was a different avatar. And to like take the time to step in their shoes and be like, what are they going to like? Like, what's going to be surprise and delight for them? Like, why this place over another place? I think that's made our designs and our properties stronger, have more longevity, more profitable, so on and so forth, just by trying to understand the person who's actually staying there, especially if it's not a direct reflection of us.
How do you find out why they chose you? Do you know? Do you just assume it's design? Do you ask?
We typically don't ask right now, but we'll just pay attention to, we always ask them why they're coming, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we'll always understand what the occasion is right out the gate whenever they either instant book or send us an inquiry. And that's where we notice the girls' trips right off the bat. And then now that's just kind of played true in whoever we're designing for. And then when we're trying to decide who we're designing for, we really let the property and the community kind of push that direction. Because we don't want to like reinvent the property into something that it's absolutely not, right? But like when I stepped into Orange Cadillac, I was like, if I had a wedding, I would want to take wedding photos here. And there's no Airbnb that's like photo worthy in Cadillac, but there are 6 wedding venues.
Mm.
You know, same thing with the Big Rapids property. Like when I walked into the Big Rapids property, there was a loft that wasn't tall enough for adults, but absolutely could sleep kids. And then there was also like a dollhouse and a slide outside on the property that was perfect for kids. And so the property just lended itself in that direction out the gate. And so, you know, if we can lean into that instead of trying to reinvent it, then it, you know, saves us money and makes it a stronger design on the back end.
Yeah. And I mean, sometimes we'll get in our reviews, people will be like, oh my gosh, the property was beautiful, or it had this thing that I was looking for. But I also will look at my direct competition. Like I have somebody who's directly across the channel from me who doesn't have design. They don't seat the same amount of people that they host at the dining room table. They don't have a fully stocked kitchen. They don't have the amenities that we offer. And so then to me, that just kind of eliminates, oh, that's why they chose me. We're around the same price point.
Mhm.
We sleep around the same people, but I offered all of these things that my competition is not offering. And so that's why to me, that's why I'm pulling most of the traffic that's coming to my area. I'm even pulling traffic of my house sleeps 8 and I get just couples staying at my property instead of staying at one of the apartments that's available downtown because I've designed better. I have a hot tub for them, all of these things where they're booking a house for 8 people and it's only 2.
Yeah. Interesting.
Which is nice for my cleaners, actually.
Cleaners love it.
That is super nice for your cleaners. I have found that where we're at, people are I've had a couple of groups that have come in and it's just 2 or 3 people that are staying. And by the time they leave, the whole entire house has been used because the people from that they're visiting in town come out and just hang out at the rental. And I could care less, whatever, doesn't cost me any more to clean it. But it makes sense. Like if I was renting it, I probably wouldn't be like, hey, don't clean your house. Them clean their house, you know? And so it works great. And it's 40 acres. You can have some privacy rather than being in town and having a little lot and having people right next to you. I just feel like that, like I want to start we might need to work on this together. I want to start a whole search website, rural short-term rental or rural Airbnb.com, because there are nothing. Like Airbnb, you can search rural in there, but then you can't filter it. I'm like, come on, Airbnb, seriously? Like there is no way to find rural Airbnbs? But I have a client that's doing a website like that right now, and it's like $45,000. So like, probably not the top of my list of things I need to worry about. But I think there's a huge movement and people are going to want that. And so they're going to be searching for that, and Airbnb's not doing their job. Are you guys direct booking?
We are not currently.
Okay.
That is on our list to do, but we reached a point where we did recently, as of this year, hand off the guest communication and pricing, property management side of our business so we can focus on growing the portfolio. And so he obviously would manage the direct booking as well. And for us, you know, we always want to slow down and make sure that when we do shift into a new gear, like we are right now with offloading our properties, that is handled in a way that our guests don't notice the difference between us and somebody else managing it. And so until that, it's just fine-tuned, clean, flawless. I don't want to add an additional thing into the mix. So I think you'll see that from us probably in 2024. But right now, we're just really fine-tuning our operations so that every guest feels like first guest.
Yeah, and I think we see direct booking as more of a repeat guest avenue, not a first-time guest avenue. I personally like the backup insurance that comes along with somebody booking on a platform like Airbnb or VRBO. And then once they've proven that they're a great guest, giving them the option of a direct booking. I just like having that like extra layer of security. And so once we can kind of get enough of people that are repeat booking, it makes sense to put time into a direct booking website.
Mine is about, I don't know, I think it should be done this week. So it's almost there. I saw the fees and I was like, that's ridiculous. Like I market my own business and I know what that takes. And so it's great. Like you said, it's great, but we've already had some guests leave. They're like, hey, it was great for our girls group, but if we wanted to stay as a family, it would be a little bit pricey. And so I'm like, well, then you could come back as the repeat guest and we wouldn't have the $200 extra in fees. But at the same time, you don't get to stay there for free. Like, I get that you thought that that was maybe a little bit more or whatever, but you have a full-on coffee bar that is like going to Starbucks. So I don't know like what else that doesn't happen. That just doesn't drop out of the sky with $0 attached to it. And so I think that some of that is expectations too, but I'm going to try it, see how it goes. I don't manage mine. The guy that manages mine, he's not done it that way either. So we're going through it together.
Trial and
Which
error.
I'm like, we'll try it, see what happens.
What are you using for your direct booking website?
I created my own website and then he's using Hospitable.
Okay.
For the calendar link stuff. I don't quite understand all that because he's done everything for me. I'm just like, here you go. This is what it is. And we're fine tuning like, what is Mary Jo okay with? What is she not okay with? Or if we have a gas stove over there and I have never owned a gas stove in my life. And so this group that stayed messaged in the morning and said, hey, we used the burners last night, but we still smell propane this morning. And so, he is really good about answering all that stuff. Thank God. And that particular one, I left my phone at home and we went to town for like 3 hours and he's like trying to get a hold of me frantically. I'm like, oh yes, because he doesn't live in the same town. So I'm like, we'll go over and check it out and stuff. So he's just trying to figure out how do I want that addressed versus and me sort of giving up a little bit of control on some of that. And I have to learn the rental portion of it and he's so easygoing. He just laughs about everything. And I am not that person. And so sometimes I'm just like, whatever you think, we're good.
Yeah. We say it takes like about a year because there's like one-off questions that have never been asked before. And so your property manager might not know how to answer those. I still have all of my like Airbnb and VRBO notifications on, even though I do have somebody managing it and I don't necessarily have to be the one answering those questions. But once in a while, a question will come up that I know that I haven't given the answer to yet. And so I have to plug in a little bit every now and then. Yeah. And they're great about what they're doing. Like, I can't imagine how much more work I would have if I didn't have that property manager. But for at least the first year, you are still plugging in a little bit because every property has its own unique quirks. And there's going to be questions that they just don't have the answers to because my property manager, he went to our property for the first time 2 weeks ago. He got all the videos. He's seen all the videos. He knows what the property looks like, but he actually got to physically go there for the first time. So until they understand it as intimately as you do, you got to plug in at least a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it's not a big deal. Like I'll see it come through because I get the messages too. And I'll see it come through and I'm like, oh, he doesn't know that. So then I quick text him so he can answer, And so the only ones, these hunters that came in, we had been out of shampoo and I'm like, oh my gosh, they're going to be here for 6 days. Like they're going to need shampoo. And I had just gotten it. And so I happened to see them because I was there. But otherwise, they don't even know that I live close by and I want it that way for a reason.
Oh yeah.
But he's just so much easier going than I am. And nothing major has happened that it's been a big deal. The first group of guys tore a little bit of sheetrock off. Must have been wrestling. Some fake plants were like laying on the counter and I'm like, the hell did those get off the wall? But whatever. And so and just like stuff that I thought really would have bothered me because I'm a little bit nitpicky like that has not, because they're there having a good time. And so it's always just my big thing is, and when I do the walkthrough and people leave, I'm like, oh my gosh, that's so awesome. Another one left it clean, or they like actually made the bed. Please don't make the bed if you slept in it. Like you've gone above and beyond. They're so awesome. They make the bed.
Yeah.
And so it's been nice, but it is super nice for me to not have to worry about how to set it up on Airbnb, how to set it up on VRBO. Like I really just am looking for, hey, here it is. It's done. I want to be as hands off as possible because I got a whole nother business to run.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
Yeah,
Go ahead,
I was gonna say,
Sarah.
you've got to find a property manager that you like working with. Like, I think that that's really the secret sauce. Like, when you find someone like you found or like we have found, I mean, we've gone through multiple property managers, and it's really about finding your closest coworker that you are going to be dealing with most often. Like, you will be dealing with them more often than you will be dealing with your guests or anyone else related to your short-term rentals. So just enjoying that person's work ethic, personality, stress response, all of those things make a big difference in your ability to enjoy the thing that you've built.
100%. 100%. It's like working with anybody, but he was like, I didn't particularly love our first group of cleaners. And he's so patient, and finally, after about the third clean, I said, they're gone. They're done. Fired. Like, I planted dirt under area rugs. I'm like, they didn't even lift them up. Like, they did not. Are they scrubbing the floor even? And so I'm like, there's no way. And then I was like, well, this is a complete pain for him. So I'm just going to go find the other cleaner. I live here. And then that can all be coordinated that way. And so I have had a little more hands-on than probably thought I would. But some of those things are just easier for me to do and help him than just be like, nope, it's all yours. So it is a matter of working together for sure.
Absolutely.
Okay, ladies, anything else that there's so much on your podcasts of information. We could go forever and ever and ever. But anything final that you would leave somebody with, suggestions, anything like that?
Go ahead. Tim.
Go ahead. Oh, go ahead, Em.
No, I was saying go ahead to you. So
don't fight about it.
I would say if you're listening to this and you are interested in short-term rentals, by all means, reach out to us. But if you're freaked out about interest rates or oversaturation or things like that, don't be. It is more difficult to succeed in short-term rentals, but there's still so much money to be made. So it's definitely a viable solution to get you out of your 9 to 5 or to continue growing the money that you're making elsewhere. So either way, it's still a great time to invest. It's just about knowing where and when to invest.
That is great. I'll leave it at that because I think that the fear of getting in is a really big thing right now with the way that the market is looking, and there's still a way to get into this the right way. It might just take a little more work on that front end running those numbers, but you can still get into this. This is still a good way to be able to grow your money.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thanks, ladies, very much for being here. I appreciate it a lot.
Thank you for having us.
Yes, you're welcome. All right, guys, you know the drill. Go to withoutthebank.com, get your book, schedule your appointment. I am going to tell you right now, I am booked until February. I got to figure out how to get all you guys in sooner than that, but please hang in there until February because if you go to somebody else, it's going to be done wrong. So either wait to see me until February or you lose money. It's really up to you. Okay, thank you very, very much. If you have questions, comments, concerns, Mary Jo at withoutthebank.com. Thank you.